Good afternoon everyone. Today, tatalakayin po natin ang income statement. But first, what is income statement? Income statement is one of the most common and critical of all the financial statement that you are likely to encounter. Ano po? It is also known as the profit and loss statement. Income statement, ito po yung pinaka-summary of all the income and expenses over a given period of time. Halimbawa, for a year, ano po yung mga naging source of income, ano po yung mga pinagkagastusan. So, dito po ito nagre-reflect. Ito po yung pinaka-summary. So, for us to understand the income statement, it is important part of a company's performance report that must be submitted to the SEC, which is the Security and Exchange Commission. It also provide the snapshots of financials as a particular the date, the income statement report income through a particular period of time. Usually ginagawa po ito quarterly. For example, tayo sa DepEd, meron po tayong financial statement. So, every quarter yung report or every year, monthly. So, depende po yun sa duration or dun sa tinatawag nating fiscal year. Income statement is also called as profit and loss statement it summarizes all the incomes and expenses of a given period of time. Halimbawa, kasama rin po dito yung impact of revenue or the like. Income statement focuses on 4 key items, which are the revenue, the expenses, gains and losses is that differentiate between cash and non-cash receipt. Halimbawa, sales in cash versus sales on credit or cash versus non-cash payment. Disbursement, it starts with the details of sales and then works down to compute the net income and eventually the earnings per share. Okay? Essentially, it gives an account on how to net revenue. Realize, pag sinabi po nating revenue, nangangahulugan ito ng mga kinikita. So, it is divided into two. First, we have the operating revenue and then an operating revenue. So, operating revenue realized through primary activities often referred to as operating revenue. For example, company as a manufacturing a product or for a wholesaler or distributor. For us, sa school, ang business natin mismo, for example, sa mga private school, yung mismong services na ino-offer natin. That is what we call as operating revenue. While as yung non-operating revenue naman po, it is also called as secondary o yung mga non-core business activities natin. Or di kaya naman tinatawag po natin itong recurring revenue. Ang source po ng ganitong revenue ay from the earnings that are outside the purchase of sales or goods and services. Halimbawa dito yung mga rental ng mga business property, yung mga income from strategic partnerships, o yung mga from income from advertisement. Ito po yung halimbawa ng mga non-operating revenue. Next naman po natin yung tinatawag nating gains. It is also referred as income. So, ito yung mga indicate the net money from other activities, such as sales. Yun po. Tayo po sa school, ito po yung mga kinikita natin from our payment from services that we offer. For example, the tutorial and the likes. We should not be confused with revenue and receipt. Revenue po is usually accounted for in the period of sales when we delivered our services. While as receipts, ito po yung mga cash received and are accounted for when the money is actually received. Halimbawa po sa school, yung receipt, ito po yung mga perang tinatanggap natin in cash. Halimbawa, bayad sa tuition fee. Tapos yung revenue po, sa pangkabuuan, sa loob ng isang taon, ito po yung kabuuang kinita o yung naging gains natin mula dito sa ating services na ino-offer. Next, another key stages po natin, yung tinatawag natin expenses and losses na po. For the expenses, this is the cost for a business to continue in operation. So, ito yung mga turn into profits. Ito yung pinakapuhunan na ginagamit natin. Sometimes, it is written in the form of tax return. Ano po? Halimbawa po nito, mayroon tayong tinatawag na primary activity expenses. Na po? These are all the expenses incurred for earning the normal operating revenue. Halimbawa, yung mga primary activity natin of the business. Ano po, included po dito yung mga cost of goods that we are going to sell. Ano po, yung mga selling, mga general and administrative expenses. Ito po yun, yung mga, for example, yung expenses natin sa research and development. Ano po? Tapos yung mga secondary activity expenses naman, ito po yung mga interest na po na binabayaran natin. Halimbawa do sa mga loan natin. So, sometimes, yung losses natin, pwede natin siyang i-classify as also our expenses. So, for our income statement structure, mathematically, it is calculated by the following formula. Halimbawa, net income is equals revenue plus gain minus expenses plus losses. So, ito po, katulad na makikita niyo sa slide, ito po yung halimbawa ng kanilang net income structure. So, how to read standard income statement. Though the main focus is to calculate the profit income, at each subhead revenue and operating expenses, we have to look also for yun sa mga account natin and other expenses account, operating expenses, yung mga taxes, yung mga interest, and then though the calculation is just simple, it only involves addition and subtraction, the order in which the various entries appear in the statement and their relationship often get repetitive and complicated. So, let us take a deep dive into these numbers for better understanding. So, income statement is divided into three structures. First, we have here the revenue section, the operating expenses, and the income from continuing operations. So, po, revenue sections, ito po yung total revenue, no po. Then, the operating expenses, reducing the total operating expenses from total revenue. Kabilang po sa tinatawag natin sa operating expenses na po yung mga earnings natin bago kaltasin, yung tinatawag natin interest or yung mga taxes na po. Then the last one is the income from continuing operations na po. It add nets na po into income and expenses. Kumbaga ito na po yung pinaka net income natin o yung kabuuang kita, less na yung mga taxes and other operating expenses. The other one that we will discuss is understanding what is a cash flow statement. So, a cash flow statement, it is a financial statement that summarizes the movement of cash and cash equivalent. Halimbawa dito yung mga cash that comes in and go out of a company. Statement of cash flow is divided into three components. We have here the operating activities, the investing activities, and the financing activities. For the cash operating activities po, it includes the sources and uses of cash from business activities. In other words, it reflects how much cash is generated from a company's services. Halimbawa sa school, magkano yung na-generate natin mula sa services na ino-offer natin. It also include the receipt from our services, interest in payments, income tax payment, payments made to suppliers of goods, halimbawa supplier na uniforms, salary of teachers and employees. It also includes rent payments and another type of operating expenses. Next is the cash flow from investing activities. It includes any sources and uses of cash from company's investment. Halimbawa, purchase of sales or of assets, loans made to vendors or received from the customer, any payments related to mergers and acquisitions. Then, the last one is the cash from financing activities. Cash from financing activities include the sources of cash from investors and banks, as well as the way cash is paid to stakeholders. Include po dito yung mga dividendo, yung mga payment po sa mga stock na repurchase, and payment po sa mga utang or mga principal loans. Another topic naman po natin ay yung tinatawag natin working capital. So, what is working capital? Working capital, it is a financial statement No po, financial metric, that is difference between company's current assets and current liabilities. So, dito natin makikita ano-ano yung mga assets natin. Halimbawa ng assets na po, ito po yung mga cash, yung mga accounts, yung receivable, and yung inventory natin. While as yung mga liabilities natin, ito po yung mga accounts payable, yung mga taxes, yung wages, and interest owed. So, working capital, it is also allow us to plan for our future needs and ensure that the company has enough cash and cash equivalents meet short-term obligations such as yung mga unpaid taxes and mga short-term debt natin. For us to enable to compute our working capital, here's the formula as stated, current assets minus current liabilities equivalent to working capital. Bakit nga ba mahalagang maunawaan natin na why is it important to learn about working capital? Working capital is used to fund operations and meet the short-term obligations. If a company has enough working capital, it can continue to pay its employees and meet other obligations. Then as well as working capital has advantages. First one, working capital can help smooth the fluctuations in revenue. With adequate working capital, a company can make extra purchases from suppliers to prepare for the busy month while meeting its financial obligations during periods where it generates less revenue. On the other hand din po, para malinaw din ano yung goal natin dun sa ating finance team. Halimbawa po, we can have a clear view of how much cash is on hand at a given time and work with the business to maintain sufficient working capital. Halimbawa, para mapunan natin yung mga liabilities natin plus some leeway for growth and contingencies. So, I think doon na lang po at maraming salamat.